Hello and welcome back to the LAMDA log. Term 2, week 1, day 3. Um, Today was a pretty busy day, so I'm gonna just get right to it. We had a lot going on. Wednesday, of course, January 14th, and I have this many pages of notes to get to, so I want to keep this under an hour. Let's see what I can do. Okay, beautiful. Okay, so our first class we had from 9 to 10:15, and we jumped straight into thesis. Okay, this is with Brittany Cope, who I believe is the head of discipline of acting, and she is delightful. She's one of those people who's like full energy all the time. She's also pregnant, so all the power to her. So I'm just going to get into my notes. This is my thesis, right? This class will be mostly about resources and tools. Ollie will take this class for the second half of term. These classes are to prepare and work with us, right? We shared our names and pronouns, where we're at on our thesis projects. Um, yeah, this class is not graded. It's not for marks. It's just for help. It's like a lab. Um, so a frequent problem that a lot of people have is just having too much and needing to narrow it down because the thesis project is 20-minute performance. What does that mean, right? Um, and it's good to find a question that justifies the project. Brittany is a viewpoints practitioner, so that's where her training comes from and comes down to, which is cool because I want to look into that. I had a director, um, Kate, who was really into viewpoints, and I'd like to think more and learn more about that because I don't know a ton of it. Um, we have 4 sessions of this class, including the one we just had, right? Um, and what's going to be important in this class is just to make a choice and go for it. We will give each other ideas and clarity. The more I put into it, the more I'll get out of it. There will be a test each week. Sorry, let me repeat that. A task each week. So something to work on while we're in the meantime. We will get up each day and present something. Every day we'll present something. The date for the thesis is um, the end of June, beginning of July. It's wrong in the syllabus, but that'll be changed. So we did this speed dating activity where we had an outer circle and an inner circle, and the outer circle rotated, and we just answered some questions, right? Questions about our thesis, and we recorded our thoughts. And as we went through these questions, just like are your characters? What's your idea? What are places where it could take places and what question is it answering and what does it look like? Kind of just little questions, and we had a minute to answer them with different people. And as we were doing this, we then got to record our thoughts afterwards. And I want to do, I think my thesis might be too long for the 20 minutes. And so I might just do one section of like a three monologue piece, maybe four, but I want like to do 3 monologues, maybe four, of different times about um, taking the Lord's name in vain through action. As a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a Christian, I believe in the Ten Commandments in the Bible. And the second commandment is, Thou shalt not take the Lord thy God's name in vain. And I think a lot of people, and a lot of times we just associate that with saying it. But it's so much more than that. It's not just saying it, it's doing things in his name that aren't part of his will. And so I want to identify that. And I'm thinking about having kind of three, maybe a fourth one that is a good example. But an English king like Henry V, who is by um, divine instigation, divine purpose, what he thinks is God's will, he invades France, which is stupid. It's not. it's an ego thing. It's a desire, and it wouldn't have been sanctioned by God. And then another one, maybe a colonizer, a conquistador, um, that is trying to bring Christ to the indigenous people of the Americas, but doing it in such an awful and forceful way. And then the third one would be a Christian nationalist who is focused on hatred and thinking that they're bringing this great work or standing up for Christ when they're too focused on the justice and not enough on the mercy and love. Um, and in this, the scene is they're kneeling down and they're praying to God, and um, right, God asks for love and to love God and to love thy neighbor. And how have we lost that? How can we stand up for Christ and not hate and destroy his children? God is good and love, and where does this hatred come from? And um, so then next we wrote down in some speed writing, we wrote down um, all the things we could think of in 5 questions or 5 categories: themes for the thesis, the physical world of the play, um, characters that exist in this play, what relationships are in this play, what is the scene or event that takes place in the play. Those are the 4. So for themes, I thought religion, truth, redemption, compassion, recontextualization, love, tolerance, empathy, justice, call to repentance, valor to speak, um, loving those who need it most. And then 2, for the physical world of the play, it could be a town hall, a church, a world stage, America, to the people who need to hear it, a library, heaven, or someone's individual house. Um, a theater, a stadium, a news broadcast. And then 3 is what characters exist in this play. English kings, Christ, God, Christian nationalist, colonizer, conquistador, a bishop, a religious person, a president, a talking spokesman, Charlie Kirk type. And then 4, what relationships are in the play? Father, son, a king and his subjects, a priest and um, a believer, God and his son, a politician, a subject and a citizen, something like that. 5, what is a scene or event that takes place in the play? A king deciding to invade France, a colonizer invading America, a Christian nationalist storming Capitol January 6th, um, death at the pearly gates, or a prayer in one's room. And then we pitched the thesis to a group of 3. I was with 2 other students, and then we asked to receive some questions and thoughts. Some things I got is I want a 4th person maybe who thinks that they failed. Maybe it's somebody in prison, somebody who is aware of their misdeeds and their failures and their falling apart, kind of like a poor wayfaring man of grief in the last song, in the last line, where they don't realize that they've done all this for God and for Christ. And then 3 minutes. Oh, we had 3 minutes to put together a 45-second part of our thesis. And starting, I was thinking starting as a prayer, where they receive revelation and God speaks to them. And how can I characterize God through the perspectives of someone else, and how do they address God? And so I started writing down some ideas about how the prayer would be, and points of it. I want to focus on the Christian nationalist at the moment. And I really do want to show the goodness of a Christian nationalist and of a Christian. I think it's very easy to fully demonize someone who doesn't believe what you to believe, or who does bad things. And and so I want to explore that and say this isn't a bad person. This is a good person who cares about their family, who cares about their country, who cares about themselves, and for speaking up for God, but are doing it wrong or misunderstands God, or only sees a part of him as this just and vengeful God, and punishing God instead of the loving God that we learn about in Scripture. And then I had questions of how to clarify my peace, place, character, given circumstances. The moment before is crucial. Um, it's crucial to humanize and to love these people and characters. And then we all went up and did it. And when I did is I really have this idea of like a blue collar construction worker or physical laborer, who has a dusty coat and who takes it off and maybe washes their hands and cleans off their clothes and is clearly beaten and troubled and lives an honest and a pained life, and then kneels down and prays. And in this prayer, they glorify God, but they lean into his just side and his all power too much, and not on his mercy. Um, and so, and then I want a recognition or something at some point to show the miss, the mistake, the misunderstanding, because it's all about, those who are found with charity at the last day will be saved, and those who don't won't, right? And so, how can we have charity, which is the pure love of Christ, if not through loving our neighbor and taking care of each other? So, I didn't really like what I did, but it helped me contextualize and get something on its feet. Remember to steal from each other and to use each other, right? We can inspire each other. We need to consider content warnings. Something we might do is write in a book what content warnings there may be, and if you are worried about like how you might be affected by certain things, you can check the book and then take that power into your own hands and leave if you need to. We are the best audience, okay? So think of a wider audience. How might they respond? It won't always be the best. Don't rush the tempo. Do it the way you would in the entirety, in the context of a play. Don't just rush it because it's 45 seconds or a minute or whatever we're going to do. And be very specific about the setup. Look into the space ahead of time to see if it can ignite or a curiosity or idea. And then a great phrase is hold on tight, hold on tightly and let go lightly. To hold on to your ideas and your concepts, but when they don't work, let them go. This is the creative process. So fully commit to whatever you're doing. Don't wait for permission to bring it. There's a generosity of competitiveness that improves us all and helps us step up. So, for example, if somebody does something, you're like, oh, I like that, that's good, let me see if I can do it, or it's like, oh, I can do better than that, or I can improve, and it's just healthy competition. Sorry, I'm getting. Yes. And so our homework is to have 2 minutes of our thesis. It should be specific. um turn back to the notes, and what we wrote, I think. And then we will start next time immediately with our presentations. Okay. And then our second class of the day was storytelling through dance with Gregory Hanny. And oh my goodness, what a physical abuse. Abuse is the wrong word. What a rigor. What difficulty. We did a warm up and it was brutal. He said be early. He's the kind of person who says, um, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're late, don't come. Don't show up. So I like that. Um, and he said, I will happily lock you guys out. Uh, the warm up, it was, let me see what I can do to recreate a little bit of it. but we were doing, we had our arms out like the whole time, and then we were in second position, which is our feet are out. You can't really see them. And then you put them toe to the front 4 times, and then to the side, and to the back, and then switch. And then we did that, and then we went up on our feet, and then we rolled down, and we did push-ups, and we did abs, and my booty was kicked, and I was sweating vigorously, and it was rough, but it was so good. I loved it. Um, and then let me see if I can do something. Um, and then we learned some choreo. I'm not gonna do it right, but let me try. Um, let's see if this is connected. No. So we listened to a Bad Bunny song. Nueva Yol. Where is it? Aha. Okay, so I'm gonna try to show you the choreo a little bit. It's not gonna be very good, but this was the what we worked on after we did the warm up for the rest of the time. So just a little warm up. We're like, we're just moving, doing our own thing. Move this down forward. Ah, ah. Mm. And then it grew. Ah. Ooh. Ah. Bah, 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 bah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bah, da, 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 da. And then we, and then I'm gonna mess this part up because in time that was hard, and I don't have a lot of space. But so after we go, bah, bah, do we close? I think we close. I can't remember. And then we go 1, 2, 3, 4. Bah, bah, da, da, bah. And then we bring our arms up, and then we come pivot, grab, pull, spin, and then we do go back, back, ha. Anyway, that was the gist of it. Not very good, but super fun. And I was soaking wet and just a whole mess of sweat. But it felt so good to do something so vigorous and so difficult. It was awesome. Then we had combat, and we worked on sword and dagger. So, sword goes in your right hand, dagger goes in your left. And let me see how much. We did a warm up first. Um, we did. I should just stay over here. Yeah. Okay. So, um, we did a block with our left hand, and then they came in with the right hand, and like a backhanded fist to the face. Pow! So you block it, and then you move it down, and you do it, and then they move it down, and you do it. Pa, pa, and then we switched. Ba, ba, ba. So it's this kind of motions. Mm. And the idea is to kind of keep it firm here, but loose here. And then pa, pa, cha, wa, ba, 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 ta. Kind of an idea. And then we did a regular warm up on like the moving side to side and whatever. Okay. So now, with sword and dagger, you normally have a wide stance, um, and you're still straight forward. And the on guard, you have both hands out. But the sword comes back a little more because the dagger is shorter. So you kind of want the tips of the sword and dagger at equal size. And then when you lunge, you pass, lunge, lunge, lunge. So it's all forward. And when you start here and lunge, lunge. And what's important is to bring the arms back as you go forward so that they're ready. So lunge and retreat and lunge, so on and so forth. And then when retreating, it's the same thing. Ah. Um, and then you would do the same things as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you can do sloping. Um, and you would do the same kind of. So 1 with your right hand, the dagger would be on 2. And then you would match it. And then you can also block cross guard. And typically you put the sword over top of the dagger just because then it's easier to strike. So you can block here, you can block here. Bam, bam. And yeah. And then we had a little um a combination. And my friend filmed it for me. Well, filmed herself doing it, but I didn't get permission to share it or anything. But you're here, and then you lunge, and that gets blocked. Oh, also, as you're striking, in stage combat, you want to, at the last moment, kind of tilt it so it's not straight and tilt, so you're not just like stabbing someone in the hip. But so you do that at the end a little bit, and then they block that with a. Ooh, I'll figure out the defense. So that's blocked, and then he comes in with his sword, and then you parry here, block. So now you have both sword and dagger here, sword and dagger here. So then you bring it up like you're going to stab their face, but they block it, and so then you come in and you kick them in the hip, and they spin around, and then you come down, losing. Then you come down on top and down in the center, down on top, down in the center. Um, yeah. So a little bit like da da shoot pow bah bah. But then this needs to stay up. That was something that my partner was really good at. So bam bam. That was the gist of it. And then the defense is you want to start with the right knee forward because you kind of match them. And so they come at my left hip first. So I step back and block with my dagger. And then I lunge forward with my knife. And then I stop that. And then I get kicked in the hip. I turn around. I block up here. And then I block down there while I'm taking steps back. So block here, block here. And that was the gist of it. It was super fun. That's a little sword and dagger for you. Um, and then was that lunch? I believe that was lunch. Yeah, yeah, that was lunch. Um, so then after lunch, we had accent with Jess, and we have another student teacher in that class, which is Carrie from Central, and they call them the Mavs. Um, and so we broke down some information, which is Um, I'll just read you my notes. Back to notes. So there are many ways to learn accents, and you need to learn what works for you, right? There's different things that work for different people, and some of them don't make sense when you say them, but then the result works. So it's like, okay, cool. So we will receive systems, and we can take what works, but make sure that we try, but make sure you try the design technique before you just put it aside. It's like, that doesn't work for me. I don't like that. Confidence is key, so whatever creates confidence in you is the best way to help you learn. And then you must give yourself permission to try and go for it. Some book recommendations are Knight Thompson's Experiencing Speech and Experiencing Accents. And in this, they talk about the four P's um, of accents, which is the first P is people. So where, oh, I had a big old booger. So where are these people from? And who are they? Like, why do they speak that way? And connect to the people. You want to listen to the actual people who speak like that and not someone imitating it. And the more you learn about the people, the better off you are. Number two is posture. So this is rested and repeated movements of articulators, the position in the mouth, and like the actual physicality of the accent. Then three is the pronunciation, right? This is the consonants and the vowels. How are those pronounced? Four is prosody. Sometimes it's referred to as intonation or musicality, but these are the stress patterns, the pitch patterns, and the rhythm patterns. Oh, and then something to remember with the posture is where it sits and resonant focus, right? Where does it buzz, and where is the space where the sound resonates? Um, think of think of the shapes. So these four P's will be our map to practice and learn accents. We are going to learn two simultaneously. So part of the class will learn one, while the other part will learn another. And we'll be learning General American, which I fairly speak. It's not perfect, but it is practically American, General American, and Standard Southern British. So that's kind of the evolution of RP. RP is a little more posh now, but it's the evolution of RP, received pronunciation. So there's received pronunciation, which is the posh side of SSB, Standard Southern British, and there's um, kind of London, or the, what was it? I wrote it down. Or the London estuary kind of regional sound. And so SSB is found in the middle of that. Sometimes it leans a little more posh, a little more RP, and sometimes it leans a little more London and a little more estuary. So I will be working on Standard Southern British since I practically speak General American. But we must find samples and resources, and it should be appropriate to the person speaking and appropriate to the character. So meaning that it's a good representation of gender, age, class, whatever that may be. So some examples of SSB that we're thinking of are Billy Piper, Kate Winslet, Ricky Gervais. I just said Rick Gervais, and I was like, that doesn't look right. Or Ricky Gervais. Daniel Craig, Jonathan Bailey, Cynthia Erivo, John Oliver, Lily James. Those are some examples. And, they lean either way, but in general, those are SSB. And then SSB kind of sits in the middle of that socioeconomic um, state. So part of our homework is to research the history of RP and like where it came from and what's its deal, which I kind of know about um, with like BBC English and how it's very classist in the sense that if you didn't speak RP, then you were looked on as less. My Fair Lady. And then don't watch performances, watch real people. And so the other bit of our homework is we need to find people to listen to, three useful examples of SSB appropriate for me. So once again, appropriate for me is like age, ethnicity, gender, samples. Um, and then the sample should be video or audio. Some good examples and good places to find examples are podcasts, interviews, real life instead of media. And what makes a useful sample are of the following. So speaking as themselves, right? It's unself-conscious. It's not somebody thinking about the way they're speaking. It's not It's not a speech. It's not a talk, something in which someone has to be more formal. It has a good length. It should be at least 3 minutes. There should be plural or multiple samples, appropriate profile, right? Age, gender, ethnicity, so on, for the character or for you. Not speaking about the accent, because when you start thinking about it, you start affecting the way you say it. It's like if I were to say water, wa, it's got that wa sound, water, 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 water. But if I'm just talking, I say water, water, right? And I get a wah kind of sound. It's almost becomes a caricature of itself. And then it should have a variety of words and sounds and not excessive interruption, because the more you speak, the more fluid it becomes and the easier it is. The perfect sample is two people speaking the same accent who know each other pretty well. And it should be conversational. Where can you find these? You can find them on YouTube, Spotify, podcasts, oral histories, local radio. Podcasts are especially great. And yeah, that was accents. I'm super stoked for it. We did have a moment where when we were coming up with those people, that we got in little groups, and then we talked about who might they be. And then one of the British students was coming up with who might have a general American. It was great. Um, then we had acting through song with Graham Hubbard and James Michaelos. Um, Graham is the predominant teacher. James is working as first accompanist, but also um, there to support and help us. He's who we had before in ensemble singing. I think we still have him in ensemble singing. Um, so this was just a lecture. We just sat and talked, and then yeah, we're cruising. Let's see, time. We're doing all right. So Graham knew that he wanted to act at 8 years old, and he's not an academic, but he's emotionally educated and emotionally intellectual. He wrote a musical when he was really young, and he says he doesn't know how he did it, and he's never been able to do it since, but it got the attention of people and it got him in the right places. And then he went to LAMDA when he was 18. It was very different, but he went there. Um, and then he had a little career, and he was singing Mooning from Greece as Roger in on the West End, and his voice just like went out. It just died, and it never came back, and his singing career was over. Um, but he says he very much believes in no coincidences and the purpose of life and the purpose of these things. So he said it is what it is. And then he lived in India for a little bit, and then he moved back to London and was part of a Buddhist community. He then saw somebody that he knew from before, and he's like, "Oh, I haven't seen them in a while. I should go up and like say hi. How you doing?" But he thought maybe not. Who knows? And he decided to. And that person was really excited to speak to him and said, "Hey, I need an assistant. Um, I'm working on this new production of Sweeney Todd, and I need an assistant. Would you be available?" He was like, "Yes, I would be." And that production went on to run on the West End and then moved to Broadway. And before he knew it, he was working with Patti LuPone in Sweeney Todd. Um, so act on these coincidences, act on the serendipity, because you never know the purpose, right? You never know why it is. Um, so he got this job from just saying hello. Um, and he believes that your vortex finds you. Then he had this great quote, which is a Buddhist quote that says, "Believe nothing, no matter where you read it or who says it, unless it agrees with you, with your own reason and common sense." So I'll read that again. Believe nothing, no matter where you read it or who says it, unless it agrees with your own reason and common sense. I don't know if I totally believe that, because I believe people have better reason and common sense than I do. But I do believe in having a healthy skepticism. Um, yeah. So then we started moving a little more towards musical theater, and songs exist in musical theater because um, they need something that spoken words can't provide. And then as an actor, it's our job to find the spontaneity, deliberality, through questions and exploration. Right? Hot seating is a great way to exercise this, where you sit in a chair and you have a bunch of people ask you questions as you're in character, because it just makes you think on the spot in the character. What do I want? How am I going to get it? What is the difference between, yeah, one of my, so kind of all those Stanislavski, Uta Hagen, Michael Sherlock questions, like all those motivation kind of ideas. And then what is the difference between performing and acting? And he says performing is planned and deliberate, and delivered, it's boring and false, it's demonstrative. Excuse me, it's demonstrative. And then acting is built in objectives and intention and action. It's not about showing emotion, but acting and doing that creates emotion. There's only one of us in the entire world. We are absolutely individual. So lean into your individuality. There is no point to judge or compare because we are individual and we don't know other circumstances. Fear is the undergarment of all armor. I like that a lot. Fear is the undergarment of all armor. So, whatever insecurity, whatever frightfulness we might have, fear is what creates that. Actions tend to be emotional, not physical. So it feeds the soul. Actions feed the soul. And think of them as emotionally motivated. Um, Graham says that his work is good because he can play. This is also a different Graham than um, Graham, who we had in music history. Different guy. Anyway, if you're singing to someone, it's good to imagine. If you're singing like a song that's directed towards someone, it's good to imagine a specific person. And the lyric is where the action lives. Turn back to the text. What does it say? That's a question mark, not a period. You should be emotionally ready, right? So we have kind of three avenues of accessing emotion. We can rely on our personal experience and recall. We can imagine it in a kind of magic if situation, and we can have empathy and we can see someone else experience it and know from them. We can't force feeling on stage. An actor's worst enemy is self-consciousness, right? Being judged and worried, being overly congratulatory, right? So either way, on both extremes, it gets problematic. But if you're overly focused on yourself, you lose the presence and you lose the truth. So there are three circles of awareness. There's the immediate environment, like what is around you, right? There's your fellow actor, and then there's out into the space that is the auditorium or the acting space that goes beyond the stage, right? So when attention is full, fear disappears, right? Then music is drama. I know these are a bunch of like scattered notes, but I think it's good stuff. And we just sat down in a circle and lectured basically. Your own response to music is true and can't be overruled, right? So whatever you experience is truth. Initial reactions to music and text are very helpful and useful as a jumping off point. So when you first listen to something, how do you experience it? And then we need two channels. We need the character and like the tempo, the dynamics, the tempo, the key. So our character when we're singing a song, and then also what the music tells us. Um, and all that tempo is indicative of mood. Rhythm is the game. Rhythm is the what to melody and lyric. I can't read my own handwriting. Ho ho. Rhythm is the glue to melody and lyric, right? So melodies on one side, lyrics on the other one, and the rhythm is what brings them together. You're missing out if you don't tap out the rhythm. It's helpful and it puts it into your body, right? Use multiple ways to learn and explore. Um, Must have been getting tired because arm arms ways to learn and explore. Whatever that says. Anyway, rhythm will give you clues about your character and the scene. Harmony is anything that is not the melody, right? So the piano track is part of the harmony, the accompaniment, the rhythm, anything that is not directly the melody is harmony. So you should work with a clean accompanist to work on your song. So don't just sing with another person because you'll start to mimic them. James was very adamant about this. He says that even listening to someone singing it once can greatly influence your performance. He says how um like with these famous songs with famous renditions, he can usually tell if someone which like track that they listen to, which performer they listen to when they're performing. Um, so it's good to try maybe listen to it once, but try to avoid it as much as possible. Good writing will give you all that you need. When choosing songs, you should think, is it overdone? Is it persistently difficult? And good work and good choices will help you out so much because if you pick a bad song, you have to be extraordinary to elevate the material. If the material is great, it can elevate you and you don't have to do as much. A lot of the contemporary stuff is crap. It's explanatory of feelings, and Scott Allen was specified as someone who just writes very generic stuff. I don't know him, but Sondheim is like the standard for great songs for actors to sing. It's so specific and motivated and clear. So context is really important. You know the original context, and then you can change it yourself if you want to do that, because that can help you stand out. But you should know the original context. Um, Changing the context becomes memorable, and it helps you stand out, like I just said, because I repeated that. Honor the punctuation. A phrase is typically a thought, and you want to hold that breath until the end of a thought. Know your breathing from the beginning so you can commit to it. And then think in energy more than in volume. Loud isn't necessarily good. Dare to bring yourself into the room, right? Be yourself and be fully yourself. Book recommendation is called Creative Act by Rick Rubin. And then we broke down Finishing the Hat. We listened to it and we looked at the lyrics, and it was, it's so brilliant how the music matches it and how the dynamics follow it. And it's so specific, but it's like train of thought and it's incomplete thoughts until the very end, when it's just like, look, I made a hat where there never was a hat. That's the first like complete thought. And the rest is just these emotions coming at him. But yeah, listen to multiple people sing the song if you're stuck on one concept. And that was singing, acting through song. I'm stoked that we still have that class. And then we had movement with Nicoletta, and this was the last class of the day. Um, she said to check out the syllabus on Canvas, which is great. And we actually had time um, to write in our notes, which, she got on my case last term. So I was like, really? I can use my notes? I was like, thank you so much. That's so kind and thoughtful. I love notes. Be willing to try things physically to understand before just asking all the clarifying questions. She had two book recommendations. I only wrote down one because I didn't hear the second one. But the first one is Laban's, I don't know how to pronounce it, um, Efforts in Action. And it's all about the Laban principle, which we'll talk about in a second. But um, we have stopped using the names of technicians and dramatists because there's such an amalgamation of everyone. Like one person was influenced by 12 other people before, and we don't want to focus on a single idea and say, hey, this is the perfect right way to do things. Do this or you're wrong. But hey, here's a bunch of ideas. Here's a bunch of things that a bunch of people use. And then you can step away from the work if you need to in this class, right? If you stay in the classroom, that's better. But if you just like need a moment to step away and be like, oh, I'm struggling, right? If you need to step away more than 5 minutes, though, let Nicoletta know. And then look for more opportunity for one-on-one feedback. Yourself and she will be too. If things are being repeated in the class, also take that as individual feedback. If it's something like a regular note, it's like, oh, that must be for me. It's really great how I feel like Nicoletta and some of our teachers have received feedback from what we did last term at the end of last term and are really applying it. And it feels, I feel like when I do feedback in other situations or classes, it's like, well, that's going to fall on deaf ears and that's going to be for nothing. But it was cool. I feel like it's being addressed and everyone's trying to improve, which is really cool. Um, then we stood up and moved. We played with the Laban elements, focusing on direct and indirect. The other ones I wrote down in a notebook somewhere. But we focused on different parts of our body moving indirectly, indirectly. We started with like our neck. Well, we started just in general. It's like, how do you move indirectly, right? And what does that look like? And then we did our head and our neck, and then how that moved us, and then our shoulders and our arms, and how that moved us, and then our chest, and how that moved us, right? And then our stomach and our pelvis and how that moved us, and then our legs, and then our feet. And it was cool. I enjoyed it. And I think I enjoy that class just a little shorter, just because it feels a little more focused. And then that was Wednesday. And then I went to musical theater club and I got my music. They're singing, everybody's talking about Jamie, but it's performing during the weekend of reading week, and I will not be here. So I haven't decided what to do about that yet. But alas, that was Wednesday, day 3, term 2, week 1. We're doing it, guys. All right. Bye bye.